Good morning, Dr. Penn.
Chanie, good to see you.
It's been 10 years since the report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission came out. You, as a scholar of residential schools and day schools, really interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, looking forward to our conversation this morning. It is 10 years since the TRC calls to action and 1 year since Murray Sinclair passed away as well.
Yes.
So I think we're in a new chapter of reconciliation here in Canada, but also at Trent. So I'm excited to talk more this morning about my new book coming up and some of the teaching and research I do here.
Oh, that's perfect. Let's start with reconciliation and what that means to you and how you embed that in your work.
For me, I really think that we should have truth before reconciliation, before we get to that actual reconciliation process. And I still think we're largely in that truth-telling process here in Canada. But I do like to look at the land as well as kind of our teacher here at Trent. We're really privileged to kind of live and work on the Odahnawee-ZB, or the Otonabee River. In some ways, that is like a metaphor, I think, for reconciliation in many ways, right? If you think of the river that for a long time was polluted and has this history of logging, and now that's gone away and we're kind of rebuilding from those ashes here at Trent. So far, out of the 7 education calls to action, none have been fully complete yet, so there is still lots of work to be done.
Lots to talk about. Let's keep walking.
Okay, sounds good.
I hear you have a new book.
Yes, yeah, so it's been a long process, over 8 years of working with Curve Lake First Nation. I'm really trying to explore the history of the day school in Curve Lake that existed for over 90 years in their community. And it was very similar to the residential school process. So there was a lot of forced assimilation and forced English learning language that happened in the school. But also what we try to look at in the book is not necessarily that we thought was going to actually be in the archive. There's a bunch of stuff where chief and council actually fought for their own education at numerous different times throughout this entire period and asked for better schools, better teachers, better funding of their education, as well as the survivors who kind of banded together to make sure they could survive those experiences.
It's interesting that Curve Lake First Nation now has their own school, and it's a self-governed school.
For sure.
And what a change from the history that you've been studying.
Yeah, it's such a remarkable change that's happened really since even in the last kind of decade of the Indian Day School. It started being taken over by the First Nation. Actually, the first female chief, Elsie Knott, started really taking control of education there in their community. She actually bought a hearse at one point to ship her students into the nearby lake field so they could go on to public school and started implementing language classes, and that's really what the school is today.
We've been talking about the history, revealing the truths of day schools and residential schools. That ties to the future, and I'm wondering about your thoughts on the younger generations coming through and their role in truth and reconciliation and shaping the future.
Here at Trent, there's lots of positive things happening. Since 2017, over 20,000 students have taken the Indigenous course requirement, which is a huge bulk of students that graduate now at Trent and have some form of Indigenous knowledge, which is really encouraging. As well as when students come into that class now in 1001 that I teach, the amount of knowledge that they do have now is way beyond, I think, even from the last 5 years or so. In the first year Indigenous reconciliation course, we ask students to find a plaque in their hometown and kind of critique it. For our people, the Anishinaabe, we really believe that you need to put their hands on the work and actually get involved in some of that work, not just talk about it or read about it on the news. So they picked a plaque, they examined it, a lot of times critiqued it quite heavily, and then proposed a new plaque, and a lot of times brought in Indigenous presence and stories. And it was really powerful for them. They came in and displayed all their plaques, and the Ontario Heritage Trust provided feedback, and we hope they'll pick one of them for their new plaques down the line as that process unfolds. And I think that's really showing how students are getting practically involved in this reconciliation mission and kind of having their voice of what they want to see commemorated here in Ontario.
And sharing history with a new voice.
For sure, yeah. A much different voice.
Yes. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Penn. I've learned a lot today, and I really look forward to seeing how your work progresses.
Miigwech for our conversation, and Bamapi. I'll see you again.
Miigwech.